Once upon a time, in a small town by the sea, there lived a merchant named Gregor. Gregor was known far and wide for his greed. He always wanted more money, more things, and more power. No matter how much he had, it was never enough. Gregor's shop was the biggest in town. It was filled with all kinds of goods from far-off lands. Silks from the east, spices from the south, and furs from the north. But even though his shop was full, Gregor's heart felt empty. Every day, Gregor would count his coins and dream of ways to get more. He raised his prices higher and higher. He paid his workers less and less. The townspeople started to avoid his shop. They whispered about his greed behind his back. One day, a strange old woman came to Gregor's shop. She was dressed in rags and leaned on a twisted walking stick. "Kind sir," she said in a creaky voice, "could you spare a loaf of bread for a hungry old woman?" Gregor laughed. "Nothing is free in my shop, old woman. If you want bread, you must pay like everyone else." The old woman's eyes flashed. "Be careful, Gregor," she warned. "Your greed will be your downfall. You must learn to give before it's too late." Gregor sneered and shooed her away. But that night, he had a strange dream. In the dream, he saw himself old and alone, surrounded by piles of gold but with no one to share it with. He woke up in a cold sweat. The next morning, Gregor tried to shake off the dream. He went to his shop as usual, but things seemed different. The coins he counted felt cold and heavy in his hands. The fine silks looked dull and lifeless. For the first time, Gregor wondered if there might be more to life than just gathering wealth. As he stood lost in thought, a young boy entered the shop. "Sir," the boy said shyly, "my mother is sick and we have no food. Could you help us?" Gregor's first instinct was to send the boy away. But then he remembered his dream and the old woman's words. With a shaking hand, he reached for a loaf of bread and gave it to the boy. "Take this," he said gruffly. "No charge." The boy's face lit up with joy. "Thank you, sir. May the gods bless you." He ran out of the shop, clutching the bread to his chest. Gregor felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was a feeling he had never experienced before. Could this be what it felt like to help others? Over the next few days, Gregor found himself thinking more and more about the people in his town. He noticed things he had never seen before: how some families struggled to buy food, how hard his workers toiled for little pay, how the other merchants treated their customers with kindness. Slowly, Gregor began to change. He lowered his prices a little. He gave his workers a day off each week. He even started to smile at his customers. The townspeople were confused at first, but they soon began to warm up to the new Gregor. One day, a terrible storm hit the town. The winds howled and the waves crashed against the shore. Many homes were damaged, and some families lost everything. Gregor saw his chance to truly change. He opened his shop and invited everyone in. "Take what you need," he told the shocked townspeople. "Food, blankets, clothes, it's all free for those who need it." The people couldn't believe their ears. Was this the same greedy Gregor they had known for so long? But they didn't hesitate to accept his help. For days, Gregor's shop was a center of aid and comfort for the town. As Gregor watched his goods being given away, he felt no regret. Instead, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The smiles on people's faces, the words of thanks, the feeling of being part of a community, these were worth more than all the gold in the world. Weeks passed, and the town recovered from the storm. Gregor's shop was nearly empty now, but his heart was full. He had learned the joy of giving, the value of kindness, and the true meaning of wealth. One sunny morning, as Gregor was sweeping the front step of his shop, he saw a familiar figure approaching. It was the old woman who had visited him before. But now, she stood straight and tall, her rags replaced by a gown of shimmering white. "Well done, Gregor," she said in a voice that sounded like music. "You have learned your lesson well." Gregor bowed his head. "Thank you for showing me the way," he said. "I was blind, but now I see." The old woman smiled. "Your journey is not over, Gregor. There is still much good you can do in this world. Will you continue on this path?" Gregor looked around at his town, at the people going about their day, at the sea sparkling in the distance. He thought of all he had learned and all he had gained by letting go of his greed. "Yes," he said firmly. "This is the path I choose." The old woman nodded, her eyes twinkling. "Then let me give you a gift," she said. She waved her hand, and suddenly, Gregor's shop was full again. But this time, it was filled not just with goods, but with tools and seeds and books, things that could help people build better lives. "Use these wisely," the old woman said. "Help your people grow and learn. Show them the path you have found." With that, she turned and walked away, seeming to fade into the sunlight. Gregor watched her go, his heart full of gratitude and purpose. From that day on, Gregor's shop became a place of learning and sharing. He taught people how to grow food, how to make things, how to read and write. He shared his knowledge freely, and in return, the town shared with him. Years passed, and Gregor grew old. But he was never alone. The people of the town loved him and cared for him. Children would visit to hear his stories, and adults would come to seek his advice. On his last day, as Gregor lay in his bed surrounded by friends, he thought back to the greedy man he had once been. He marveled at how empty his life had been then, and how rich it was now, not rich in gold or goods, but rich in love, in friendship, in the joy of helping others. As he closed his eyes for the last time, Gregor smiled. He had learned the greatest lesson of all, that true wealth comes not from what we have, but from what we give. The town mourned Gregor's passing, but they also celebrated his life. They told stories of his kindness, of how he had changed from a greedy merchant to a beloved teacher and friend. They named a school after him, to honor his love of learning and sharing. And so, Gregor's legacy lived on. The lesson he had learned, the value of generosity and community, was passed down through generations. The town prospered, not just in wealth, but in kindness and unity. Sometimes, on quiet nights, the oldest members of the town would swear they saw a figure walking along the shore, an old woman in a white gown, leaning on a twisted walking stick. And they would smile, remembering the story of Gregor and his great change. In the end, Gregor's story taught everyone who heard it a valuable lesson, that it's never too late to change, that the greatest riches in life come from giving, not taking, and that a life filled with love and kindness is the most wealthy life of all. And so, dear reader, what will you do with this story? Will you, like Gregor, open your heart to the joys of giving? Will you look around and see how you can help others? Remember, every small act of kindness can grow into something beautiful. The choice is yours, just as it was Gregor's. What path will you choose?